Hello, everybody. Good afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are joining us from. I'd like to welcome you all to the Nordic Women in Film, the collaboration between Women in Film and Television International, the 5 Nordic embassies in the US, and Women in Film and Video DC, and this special event tonight, which is hosted by the Finnish Embassy in Washington. Before we start, I would like to invite Isabella Hauksdóttir, the head of the cultural affairs at the Finnish Embassy, to say some opening words.
Thank you, Victoria, and hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. And also from my side, thank you for all our partners, WIFT International, Women in Film and Video DC, Smithsonian Folklife Festival, and the Nordic Film Institutes or foundations for their collaboration in organizing this event. And warm thank you, of course, also for our radiant speakers for being available today. The 5 Nordic countries, Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway, and Sweden, have a long tradition in promoting gender equality and a long history in doing this together. Via Nordic Women in Film, we are trying to highlight the achievements of women in creative industries, encourage positive role models, and enhance gender equality. In Finland, between 2015 and 2020, around a third of the feature films were directed by women. Last year, 8 of the 15 feature films that were released with the support of the Finnish Film Foundation were directed by women. So I hope to see more of these numbers in the years to come. Non-discrimination and inclusion are among the cross-cutting themes of Finland's human rights policy. We are committed to working for the elimination of all forms of discrimination. Finland actively promotes women's and girls' rights in all its foreign and security activities, or foreign and security policy activities. We emphasize women's political and economic participation, the elimination of discrimination, and women's sexual and reproductive health and rights. Obviously, international cooperation is crucial. We work closely with other governments, civil society, and multilateral partners. The rights of women and girls are also the cross-cutting theme as Finland runs to be elected to the UN Human Rights Council. Furthermore, Nordic countries promote the full and equal enjoyment of human rights by lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and intersex persons. All these efforts aim at enabling all of us to live freely, of course. Today, we will hear our wonderful speakers share their views and experiences about living and creating freely and how they have considered that in their experience and professional life. We will also hear from the crew of TOVE, a magnificent film, and I should say also a Nordic co-production. The film tells about iconic Finnish artist Tove Jansson, and one of the themes is her search for freedom. Like many films, Finnish people, I have actually grown up with the books and illustrations of Tove Jansson. So ladies, thank you for bringing this film to us. I am so happy with all the wonderful films and panel discussions we are having ahead. Thank you again, and over to you, Victoria.
Thank you, Suvi. So I would now like to welcome for the first segment of tonight, which is the Q&A with the cast and the team behind TOVE. Before they come onto the stage, I would just like to note that for everyone in the US, we know that if you signed up to watch the film, the platform that we're using, Festival Scope, encountered some technical problems last night, which meant that most of you have not been able to see the film. On behalf of the Women in Film and TV International and the festival team, we're truly sorry about this, but the good news is that we have extended the screening window until tomorrow night. So that's February 4th, 8 p.m. EST. So everyone who has registered and is on the guest list will be able to watch the film until tomorrow night. The tickets are now sold out, so we cannot take any new registrations, but if you have a ticket, don't worry, you will be able to see the film regardless. And you should also have received new instructions from Festival Scope on how to watch the film. So during the chat with the director, producer, writer, and one of the actors, we're going to try to not talk about the film so we don't introduce any spoilers for you. So I would now like to welcome to the screen the director, Zaida Bergroth, the actress, Alma Pöysti, screenwriter, Eeva Putro, and producer, Andrea Reuter. And I apologize to anybody whose name I did not get quite correctly. Thank you guys, everybody, for joining us. So tonight we're sort of talking about creating freely, and we're talking about a film that's based on a woman who is very much a Nordic icon. And so I just want to start off by asking this question, like, why this story? So or rather, where did the story start from? Was it from the writer or was it from the producer?
Well, it was from a writer, so maybe our screenwriter Eeva Putro should take this question.
Yes. So Eeva, why this story of all the stories in the world that you could tell? Why this one?
Well, yes, it was actually because TOVE has always been a great role model for me in my growth as a human being and as an artist. Basically, also because I come from a family where my parents struggled to accept my career choice as an artist. So I really much needed this kind of like person that I could like admire in my life. And also I wanted to contribute to this kind of a movement of making stories with strong, multi-layered female characters. So these reasons made me start this journey.
Good. What did your parents think was a better career?
Sorry?
What did your parents want you to do? What did they think? What would have been the ideal job?
Yes, it was basically some kind of an academic profession. They are doctors, both. So.
Yeah, I can totally relate because my dad is an engineer and it was the same with me. I had the option to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, and accountant. And I tried accountant first, graduated, did not like it, went to law school, trained, did not like it. And then eventually, when they were no longer paying for my education, I quit my job and became a So I completely understand parents having one view of what lives could be as if it's good by their standards, and then of course trying to pursue the art, which I guess is where the question starts off about creating freely, because at times even from our homes we can't really create freely because there's a perception of what these careers are. So when you thought about making the film, like what was the process like? Did you have to get the life rights? Like how long did it take you to get a producer or the director interested?
Well, it went quite big quickly actually. I don't know why. It was maybe half a year that we like sketched the story, and then I contacted Moomin Characters, and they suggested Helsinki Filmi and Aleksi Bardi. So I knew him previously, so it was quite easy to contact him and start working with him.
And I might add that
after that, yes, and Andrea came in, and now I know her too.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Aleksi Bardi is the other producer. We are two producers on the film. And when I came into the project in spring of 2018, Eeva, the script, Aleksi, and then Zaida were on board. And then we started the pre-production from there.
Okay. And so Zaida, what made you want to tell the story when the producer came to you with this, I'm assuming an amazing script from the writer? Why did it appeal to you?
Well, of course, I thought, okay, this is a wonderful opportunity for a director to get this kind of a chance to make a portrait film of wonderful, wonderful Tove Jansson, but at the same time I was really worried also because the task seemed so big and almost impossible, even though there were all these wonderful people on board, that I needed to take my time and find my own way to her character and to the themes that this film tackles. But it was a wonderful challenge, of course. So, and here we are with this finished film, and I'm so glad that they asked me and I got to be a part of this project. But what interested me was that as most of the people, I guess in Finland at least, they know quite a lot about Tove Jansson and her work, but they probably don't know too much about her younger years when she was a struggling young artist and really trying to find her own voice and own place in the world. So this was of big interest of mine, and it was interesting to try to look at her from the eye level as a 40-year-old artist, or 30s, not in her 40s yet, but still it suddenly started to feel a very like a very close personal story. So all these things affected, and I'm really glad we are here.
Which is going to be really my next question, because when you're dealing with biopics, especially with people like Tove, who would have been quite famous and have such really established legacies, there's often a lot of expectations from the audiences who, when they're familiar with the artist's work, can also assume that they perhaps know the artist behind the work. How did you tackle capturing her legacy in a script without allowing the sentiments about the woman to sort of interfere?
So is this more to Eeva? I have my own answer as a director, but maybe Eeva can start with the script tackles.
I think that's a for every single one of you, because I think, even for Alma as an actress, you'd be playing somebody who is revered in a lot of ways. So like, how do you sort of tackle the fact that you're dealing with somebody who everybody might have had an opinion on, and you kind of had to do what was true to you?
Should I start?
Yeah, Eeva, you can start, yeah.
Yeah, I could say quickly my opinion or my view. It was basically that I tried not to think about it at all. I tried to follow Tove's philosophy that you shouldn't think about the result at all when you create. Then you have to be like in the zone of this work.
And Andrea?
Well, Tove Jansson, of course, for people in the States, if they don't happen to know the Moomins or some Finnish people, they don't know the kind of status that Tove has. She's a real national icon. I would claim she's the most famous artist from Finland, and also the most reaching one with her cultural legacy, especially the Moomins, the Moomin books and everything that has come after that. So, I mean, she's a well-known figure, but what I think is very specific about Tove is that she's not only known, but people all over the world have a very personal relationship to her, and people tend to be big fans and feel that their relationship is unique. So, because she was a very inspiring, amazing artist, and also a woman, how she led her life, that you will see a part of in the film. So we were quite hesitant and thinking that, okay, well, everyone's going to be kind of disappointed. But I think what Sofia Jansson told Zaida in the beginning of the process, that you can't please everyone, so you have to do your own version of Tove. So that's what we set out to do. And then I might just add that I did feel that it was quite important to have kind of a multi-layered script, because you also want to have things for the real fans. So in Eeva's script, there's real quotes, what the people actually said, or events or whatever, that people that really know a lot about her life can find. But it's also opened up for everyone who doesn't know anything about her from before.
And I would like to add that because we chose this period of time of Tove's life, we were kind of free to tell it, because as I said earlier, people don't know too much about her younger years. They know her from when she was this gray-haired old wise woman living with Tuulikki Pietilä. And so I think that all these like big fans of Tove Jansson can still hold this relation to this Tove they feel close to their heart. And then we have this freedom for when she was a younger artist to tell about it, because people don't know too much about it. So maybe, and hopefully we can just add new layers and colors to this legendary woman.
And Alma, why did you take the role, and how did you feel having to play such a well-known person whom a lot of people will have opinions about?
Well, how could one resist such a role? It's a dream role in all the senses of the word, actually, and terrifying. So I was nervous, like crazy, just casting for the role, and it was a big process and all of this. But I felt like if I can be a part of telling her such huge, I approached this in a very humble way. And then when Zaida finally called me and asked me if I wanted to play Tove, of course I said yes, and then I said, shit, if you can say that on YouTube, I don't know, sorry. And then we just started to work, and we as you do, you prepare, you read all you can. I read all I could, her works, and also written by her, watching documentaries, learning her techniques of drawing and writing, and her handwriting, and just we were kind of feeding these inner landscapes as strongly as we possibly could. But then Zaida, wise as she is, she gave me the advice, or we decided not to go imitating her, not working from an outside point of view, just feeding the inner world as much as we could, and then what would come out would be truthful, and kind of hanging on to that, and just discovering all we could in that world. So that was kind of the method, I guess, that we discovered doing this.
Was there anything that surprised you in the research that you found out about her that you didn't know?
Oh, many things. It's so detailed, and I did realize that you could make 100 movies about this woman, because her talent was immense and multi-layered, as an author, as an artist, as a caricature drawer, as also the way she lived politically, and then all her friendship and her social life, her social intelligence, her family relations. There could be a wonderful movie, I think, with Tove and her mother, for example, or Tove and the exes, and have they developed beautiful friendships after somehow the love stories ended. So there was a lot to discover, and I'm still discovering, actually. There's so much material.
So maybe that's the next project. Maybe there's a TV series about Tove. But I guess in just keeping with the theme that we'll be talking about later on, given that you guys found out so much about her, do you think that she created freely? Do you think that she kind of really gave us everything that she could have given, and she had all the support?
Well, I think she was very honest and free in many admirable aspects, especially when creating art. But I think she was free because of the constraints in her life. And that's partly why she was so great. She was rebelling against her father. She was rebelling against the traditional roles reserved for women at the time. She was rebelling against the politics, and she was struggling money-wise, and there were so many things that weren't too easy for her. But that's why she was creating such a fantastic art, because those were the circumstances. So her freedom comes from this, it's a result from the struggles against these constraints. But yes, I admire her because she had that integrity in her. She didn't she didn't please people and go with what was expected of her. So yes, I think she's a role model in that sense also.
I think that's the thing with artists. I think we all live vicariously through our art. I think we're all rebelling in some way or having therapy in some way.
Absolutely, I agree.
Because I know, like, when I was looking you up, Zaida, that was one of the things I admired about you, because I was like, oh, she's made films consistently since her debut film. And that's such a tough thing for a lot of female directors to do, because we hear about how many women don't get the opportunities to make films. And I just saw that from your trajectory, like, you've consistently worked and made stuff. And I was just kind of wondering, how have you managed to stay so active and so consistent?
Well, it hasn't been easy in any way. And I've many times thought about having a different profession or whatever, but still there is this strange need to do these things. And I think what we filmmakers share, we have something that is troubling us, and we need to try to solve something or deal with these things that are intriguing to us. So I've just kept going, and I've been ambitious also, hopefully in a healthy way, but I also have this need to be better at my work. You know, I need to be. I have to get there someday. But now looking back, I understand how incredibly lucky I have been. So that has absolutely existed also, even though I didn't understand it maybe at that time. But I've been lucky, and I've been lucky in a way that I've had people around me who have wanted to support me and who have believed in me. And I absolutely want to keep that in mind, so I can, do the same thing to other people also.
That's good. And I love what you say, where you're saying to me, it hasn't really been easy, because that's the thing, I think, with our careers, when people look at what we do, it always seems like it's this lovely, glossy, smooth thing, because nobody sees the journey behind the scenes. So can we talk a bit about the journey behind the scenes from all of your perspectives? And like, what constraints did you face bringing this story to screen? So we'll start off from Eeva, where it all started with the script.
Okay. Well, I guess in my case, it was basically how long it took to get the ready script, and because it took many years, and I rewrote so many times, and I had all this research done and all these versions and all these discussions and all this feedback, which was really needed to, but of course it was tough sometimes. But I never thought that it wouldn't happen someday. Somehow I believed in this project continuously. But yeah, basically this kind of screenwriters difficulties that you have to face feedback and react to that.
Yeah, but also I'm thinking as well, because I mean, of course, she lived for such a long time and the legacy was so wide. How challenging was it for you to try and select a focus? Like, because you'd have had to sort of look at all these interesting things about her and then pick something that would work in a film. How easy or difficult did you find that process?
Basically, I made the biggest choices I made at a very early stage of the process. So, for example, this time frame and so on, and like basic things which were interesting to me in her life, I choose in very early. But all the other stuff was like a huge puzzle, which was remade many times on the way. And
for you, Andrea, as a producer?
Well, I must say that this production has been under some really lucky stars. We started out financing and with a goal of quite a big budget. We did get almost all of that projected budget. So it's the second most expensive film made in Finland. And it's also in the Swedish language, which is the minority language, and the Finland-Swedish minority is where TOVE came from. So there was never a discussion around doing it in Finnish, but traditionally it's harder to get financing for Swedish-speaking films in Finland. But it actually went very well, and it's a co-production with Sweden, so we got a lot of support from the Swedish side, and our co-producers Anna Gram did a great job there. So I would say that from a producer perspective, the whole pre-production was great, and gathering the team, of course, a lot of creatives from Sweden, like the cinematographer Linda Wassberg and production designer Katarina Nyqvist-Ehnroth. They worked really well with Zaida. I'm very happy about that. And then we had the costume designer Eugen Tamberg from Estonia. So it was quite an international feel. And even though we had quite a lot of money, it was a very tight schedule for the shoot. And we were filming in 16 millimeters, and there's no lab in Finland. So we were sending the stock footage to Sweden and had to wait for the dailies, sometimes 5 days, yada, 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 yada. So there were a lot of kind of producer things to be worried about. But it all turned out well, and we were finished with the main shoot before COVID hit. So we were also able to keep the post-production schedule. So I'm, lucky stars, grateful. I think TOVE was watching over us from heaven.
And Alma, what about you? Well, what moment made you go, oh my God, why did I do this?
Well, it's a fact that I had so much to learn, and I guess time is always an issue. So just like believing in myself, okay, I'm ready now. And ready or not, here we go. It's action time. So I just had to trust Zaida and the whole team to just trust each moment. And but there were so many things to learn, actually, just like the technical things around painting, and also like smoking and things that were so completely natural to TOVE. So she had a pencil in one hand and a cigarette as a sixth finger, and in those times it was something else. So you really had to make that work organically. So those were the small technical things that you had to get right for it to be a believable TOVE. And then actually I've been acting a lot on theater stages, but never this much in front of the camera. So there I had some confidence to gain or to somehow earn. And I think our DOP and Zaida were really, really great with me with this, trying to somehow that I don't have to prove anything, just letting the camera be there and come close and intimate and trusting this world, and be also like in the love scenes, and just that it felt so natural and so great. I think that was something we discovered, that suddenly you might have thought that this is going to be a challenge, and then it was actually easier, because I think a huge thanks to Zaida and Linda for creating this trust and this communication. And it was just might be a sidetrack, but it was something so interesting what happened with the DOP and the female gaze on these love scenes. And I can't somehow, it's so interesting. It's still going on, this process in my head, that what happened, because I don't want to say it's better or worse than something else, but it was just very interesting and very natural and very, well, Krista or me, we hadn't worked with a female DOP before, so this was something new and great.
I feel like it's something that you can't quite put a finger on, but I think there's definitely a difference when you're in a crew that's full of women. There's just something, it's difficult to articulate, but there's just a different feel when you're working, and even your DOP is a woman, or the director is female, especially with certain stories. So Zaida, last but not least, what was the biggest constraint for you? What was the moment where you sort of thought, wow, what did I take on?
Well, the truth is that there were so many moments like that. But that's the thing. It really, I'm done hoping that it will ever be just easy. It's part of the job that you're desperate at times. But still, this was immediately when the filming started. It felt great because it's wonderful. Okay, now the train is on the move, and now we are really doing our best, and I love that adrenaline also, and it's I'm hooked on that feeling. But I think so. My biggest challenge was to let go of this certain admiration. It was really that, okay, we need to make it personal, as Eeva had already done with her job, and I needed to make it personal and look at her from the eye level. So that was the challenge. It wasn't easy because of who she is, but it was extremely important for this story and film to work. So I think that was the thing.
Well, it definitely worked because I saw the film and I really loved it.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations on being the Finland's nomination to the Academy Awards. Wishing you all the best with the Oscar campaign. But sadly, we've run out of time. I feel like I need to talk to you guys for at least another hour to get behind everything. But of course, we don't want to spoil it for the people who have not seen the films yet. So thank you very much for joining us. And we will now let you go so we can welcome our new panelists. And I think, Zaida, you're joining us as well for the next chat. But good luck with the film's life. I trust it's going to do very well. I didn't know much about TOVE or the Moomins, and I learned so much. And I spent so much time going back and forth researching myself because I was so fascinated as I was watching the film, trying to learn about the woman and also the legacy that she created.
Wonderful.
Great. Tack så mycket.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, guys. So now we will invite the Swedish director, Isabella Eklöf, who lives and works in Denmark. And we've got also joining us the Icelandic director, Silja Hauksdóttir, American director, Pamela Green, and South African actress and producer, Pheto. Again, I apologize for whoever's name I did not get right. I think that's everybody now, right? Okay, we'll just wait for everybody to get settled and for the cameras to come on. Okay, so welcome everybody. I think we have definitely people joining us from different parts of the world. I know Terry, are you in South Africa at the moment, Terry?
Okay, there we go. Yeah. Hi, yes, I'm in Johannesburg.
Pamela, I believe you're in the US?
Yes.
Yes.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles, oh God, and then we have some people in the Scandinavian countries. So we have about 4 different time zones. So at least we're all So thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. Before we start, just for anybody who is joining us now, we just, of course, need to apologize for the fact that not everybody has been able to see the film. We're aware that for the people in the US, there was some technical problems with Festival Scope, and which meant that many of you could not watch the film yesterday. But that has been extended, and you should have received new instructions from Festival Scope, and you should be able to watch the film up until tomorrow night, 8 p.m. EST. The tickets are sold out, so we can't take any new registrations. But if you do have a ticket and you've not been able to see the film, don't worry about it. You should be able to do that now. And I'm going to chat to the panel for about half an hour, and then we'll be taking some questions from the audience. So please, if you have any questions for the panel or anything comes up as we go along, please feel free to send that in the chat if you're on YouTube or Zoom, and we will be putting that to the panel afterwards. So ladies, we are here to talk about what does it mean to live and create freely, and what lies behind our artistic ambition, and who is to judge the worth of one's work. So I think we should start off by just having everybody introduce themselves to the audience. And I'd love for you to, in addition to saying your name and what you do, but just say what you live and create as. So let's start off with Pamela.
Oh, wow. Okay. I am I'm many things. I'm a director and a producer. I think I'm on this panel because I made a film called Be Natural, The Untold Story of Alice Guy. It was a documentary about the first female filmmaker that feels like 20 years, but it took almost 10. My day job is I do opening credits for films and graphics and editing and basically storytelling in all these different mediums. And I love archival footage and I love women's stories. So combining all of those elements is what made Be Natural. And what was the other part of the question?
That was it. Just what do you live and create as? So we know you.
I like telling stories. It doesn't matter what the format is. And I like telling stories that empower and inspire women.
That's great. And what about you, Terry?
My name is Terry Pheto. I'm an actress and producer in South Africa, born and raised in South Africa. But I've been very fortunate that my work has, traveled all over the world, and I've worked in different parts of, of the world, in the US, in the UK. And my first film, Zodzi, won an Oscar for Best Foreign Film. Foreign language film in 2006. So that kind of like gave me this huge introduction to the film world. And, later on I graduated to naturally, I think, where you want to use different, platforms to still tell stories. So I find myself behind the camera as a producer and a casting director as well. So yeah, like Pamela, I just, I'm passionate about, women and stories that, elevate women, especially Black women, who've always been in a disadvantaged position. So I am, a storyteller with, a very clear agenda of making sure that Black women are seen in a light they deserve to be seen.
That's great. We love that. And Silja.
Hi, guys. I'm Silja. I'm a writer-director from Iceland. I live and create as a director. Finished my second feature film a year ago, and now in a process of finishing up a 6-episode crime series that was shot here in between COVID rises. I have a special interest, and I'm finding out, I think, every year a bit more that my special interest is not only women as main characters, but also specifically what it can mean to be a hero, a female hero, and how a flawed female character or a human female character is something for me that is extremely exciting to explore, and finding out new aspects of what that can mean, what a strong woman can be, and doesn't necessarily mean an old version of the hero concept somehow, which is something I've been exploring now and I want to continue doing.
Okay, thank you. And Isabella.
I'm a writer and director from Sweden, and I think, what we live. What was the expression?
What are you living and creating as? What do you do basically?
Well, it's the same as my job, so I write and direct.
Write and direct. Okay, and last. Sorry, go ahead. I think there's
no.
Okay, and last but not least, Zaida. You're on mute.
That I was, yes. Yes, I'm a director from Finland. Actually a writer also. I've been writing many of my movies, and yes, that's it. I recently, like most of my films have female characters in the lead, and I've enjoyed it a lot. And I made this notion that when I was studying in film school, and right after film school, I tended to make male-driven movies. So for some reason, it was easier. And but I'm really glad that I've made this shift, and there are some like interesting new horizons with this. I've enjoyed working with the actresses tremendously, and I think it's also very, very important.
That's great. Well, and I'm Victoria, and I started off life as a lawyer before coming into the industry, knowing that I wanted to write and direct. And it's been, I think I made that switch like 14 years ago. And I've spent those 14 years producing instead. And now I'm slowly evolving and going back to the reason why I came into the industry, which is to write and direct. So I guess now that we all know what we're all doing, I guess the question really is, what does it mean for you to live and create freely? What it is that you do, and are you actually able to do that? Would you say that you are living and creating freely, Pamela? You're on mute. I love Zoom. I feel like that's the one thing I'm going to miss after the lockdown, saying you're on mute to people.
Oh my God, I hate when I mess that up. Okay, so I go on mute to be polite so nobody hears my noise. But I think what was so special about Be Natural was that we were completely donation based, and I was able to control the project, and I was free to express myself completely and make sure that I preserved, my point of view, etc. So that was special. In my day job, I'm a vendor, so I suggest, and then after that, it's basically whatever the client wants. But lately, in my other projects that I have coming up, I really work hard to make sure that whoever I work with, we are all in sync, and we do have that collaborative freedom. And that means so many things. It has to do with, the funders that you bring to the table. Obviously, as an independent, it's a lot harder to raise funds, but you want to work with people that are going to let you express yourself all the way through. So yeah, slowly but surely, it takes time.
And Terry, are you finding it that you are able to do so without constraints, trying to make Black women seen in the way that we not usually are?
I think as, still an up and coming producer, as an actor, I think it was a different, challenge altogether, just, knowing that you just wait for the right roles and you can just focus on that and just, not worry because you get your check. But the minute you wear the producer hat, you lose the money immediately. And, so it's your problem where the money comes from. And in a very small industry like we have in South Africa, the dreaming part is easy because that's free. So you can dream as much as you want, but the creating part, that's where the challenges start, because that's where you need the money. We do have, fortunately, government support, but we still have a long way to go. So I would say, we're just taking it one day at a time. There's been great, achievements and milestones, but we're not where we could be. There are plenty of opportunities, co-production with other countries that have opened doors for, South African filmmakers, but we still have a long way to go. And we don't have like angel funders like other places where people can just give you a bag of cash and say, go make a film. So, you have to be really creative, even if it means sometimes just, having friends and favors, call a couple of friends, do workshops and create something, which is what, my friends and I are currently doing, where, we're just saying, okay, if you write, I can produce, you can raise the fund, we can act without even getting paid. And why don't we do that? So we just, trying to not, make the challenges, stop us from dreaming and stop us from, creating. the financial challenges, obviously. But there are other things, obviously, that, one can mention. But I would say right now, those are the ones that I can just, start with.
Okay. What about you, Silja?
I think it's a good question. It's a bit complicated for me to answer it, but I think, in my country, we are very blessed with a lot of equality going on in the business. That's not the case in so many other countries. Still, I get a bit, we're told this a lot in Iceland, that we are very blessed and very lucky. And I do agree, especially if I compare myself and my nation to others, but still I get a bit very in listening to this too much, because I feel that it's good to be thankful for the privilege that you have, but also when I'm told that I should be thankful quite a lot, then I get a bit suspicious. So definitely there are some constraints. We're not up to half of the filmmakers being female that get funded, not at all, and it's not as impressive as the numbers that we hear from Finland now, but still, we are definitely moving in the right direction. But I've been also focused on the constraints that there are also inside of me, and what that means. And what pressure, does the pressure look like that we as female filmmakers get? That it's probably, I think, a bit different to what the guys get. When I was starting out wanting to be a director, I also got to hear quite a lot that I had the burden and the duty to make female-driven characters films with strong female characters. A lot of this was the duty, my main duty. If I was lucky enough to get funded, then this would be what I should do. And I do agree with it, because luckily today this is what I want to do. But it's not because I was told to do it. It's because I, through my own life, I just discovered that I needed to do it. Mm-hmm. So constraints can also mean a lot of things. They can also look like other pressure that you get, like what is good art? What does a good artist do? What is the right amount of artsy compared to what is popular, and all those different kinds of those hard cocktails. We somehow have to figure out what the ingredients are. I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and can be it's a tough one.
What about you, Isabella? Are you living and creating freely? Truly?
Depends on what you mean by freely and what you mean by truly. If this has not always been the case. I have had a lot of shit from men and women, mainly because I explored sexual issues and they found them gross and repulsive and they didn't want to hear about it. But that's not the case right now. I'm very privileged. I get to do what I want, but within the constraints of capitalism. So in an ideal world, I would be in Sweden or Russia in the 70s, and I would be making lyrical shorts from my favorite author, which are totally studio and totally theatrical, but that's not something you can do today. So within the constraints of having to entertain, I feel like I can work very freely right now.
And Zaida?
Yes, well, I think this field of art where we are all working is very sensitive in a way that we are not like poets or painters or writers. We are dealing with a lot of money all the time, and a lot of many expectations, and also we have this massive feedback coming to us when we make these films. It's we can't really hide from the world in the same way as I don't know, poets can. I'm a bit jealous there. So you have to be very aware of all those things that affect you. And if you're, for example, being praised for something that wasn't really your main intention, you have to be really careful that you're not tempted to follow that path. And I think that's the thing that, you know, I find really important, that you need to be aware of all these things that are affecting you, because no matter what, you are really affected all the time. You can't do these things alone or without money or without this whole business surrounding us. So I think to be free is to somehow not be free of those expectations or rules, but to be very aware of them. And try to always maintain that certain area where you feel really free, and then you can make compromises on other areas. For example, I'm trying to leave this drama area as free and enjoyable as possible, and then I do what I need to do if I'm having trouble with getting money, for example. But I'm trying to keep this pure.
Yeah, because I guess also as well, we're all women here. And I mean, one of the things we do hear a lot about in the film industry is how underrepresented women are, you know, as screenwriters, as directors, and of course, female led narratives. I feel like we're seeing a bit of a change in female narratives on screen now, more so than we've ever before. But, and I think I love what you were saying, Silja, where people sort of expect you to tell certain stories. Like if you're a woman, it's got to be something about a woman having women's issues. And like, I love action movies and thrillers. And I remember when I said that in film school, first of all, people were laughing at me. And then nobody could understand, for example, why I want to make a Bond film or why I don't want to make like a family film. And then of course, when you're Black as well, it's like, okay, are you going to tell us something about immigration or Africa? And then if it's about Africa, it's going to be something, you know, poverty, war, AIDS, you know, because Africans can't just be happy and be in a romantic comedy. So I guess my question here is like, how are we addressing these constraints? So in my case, that's why I set up a production company, because when I came into the industry was to write and direct. And then through my film school journey and everybody sort of questioning the narratives that I wanted to tell, I thought, well, I'm just going to have to learn how to do the business and then do this thing myself. And that took me a whole 10 years to build the track record to now get to the point where I can attract capital. And I as much as I feel like it's a long time, I also feel like I'm better for it, because I see some of my friends who are still waiting 10 years later to be given a chance. So with the sort of constraints that you face, how are you addressing them? How are you empowering yourself through what might seem like roadblocks? If I can start off with you again, Pamela.
Sure. First of all, I just want to say that I love all of you ladies so far and all of your answers. And you're just so inspiring, because even when I answer these questions, I feel what you're saying, but it doesn't necessarily come out. So to hear you guys say it, it's encouraging. And I love action. If somebody called me to do Fast and Furious number 47, please give me a call. But no, I made Be Natural that takes place in the late 1800s. So that's what she does. She does documentaries with skirts going around. So it's frustrating. And I know it's improving, but just like you, Victoria, I am doing everything step by step by step by step. And it's so painful along the way as I'm working on my next project and another one that is action. And I know I'll be happy that I'll have the freedom by doing all this work and I can control it, but it's super painful. So I'm not waiting for Hollywood to call me, because if I would, I'd be in cobwebs by the phone. They're not going to call me, especially because I made a documentary. So I feel like no matter what I do or no matter how many things I accomplish, it's never going to be enough. So instead, and even if it is enough, it doesn't matter. I think for me, I decided personally that I'm going to make what I want to make, and I'm going to do what I have to do, whatever it takes to get it out there, and just ignore all these, oh, what do you know about this? You never made a documentary. What do you know about editing? What do you know about action? Oh, you need to do this. You've never written a pilot. What do you know about achievement? Like, just ignore it. And I know, you know, saying that sounds maybe silly, because there's many times that I'll find myself saying, you know what, I'm just going to give up. I'm going to walk away, etc. And there might just be a kernel of one of the people that I work with. They might say just one little thing that'll just lift me up again to go out there and do it. And it's not necessarily just women's stories. It's exactly, you know, whatever you want to tell, whatever inspires you, diversity, anything. But I'm just, at this point, I'm like you, Victoria, I'm doing my own thing. And either people want to work with me to do a bunch of projects, but I'm just not going to let any barriers, invisible barriers, getting in the way. I'm just going to keep going.
And Terry, I mean, you're already doing it, because I remember when I saw Anna, it was such a different film to what we normally see coming out of South Africa with Black South Africans. So how are you keeping that flame going?
It's well, thank you. I mean, it's a challenge, but you just have to be intentional. You know, with the history of our country, it's so easy to just, you know, be comfortable in a certain, you know, genre where you just want to tell political story, which I do believe are very important. But what about the coming of age stories? What about, you know, a young, you know, lawyer who's like just dealing with things that are important today, issues that are important today? So for me, it's just, you know, trying to find a good balance and trying to make sure that the voice, you know, is very strong, you know, whichever, whether it's a period piece or it's, you know, a futuristic story, it represents, you know, at least someone is, you know, it's a human story, first of all. I think that's the most important thing, because if you tell a human story, then we can share it. It doesn't matter which part of the world it is, you know, everyone can relate to it. And the message needs to be very clear. This is what this person is going through. And lastly, why am I doing this? And for me, it's, you know, I keep going back to, because I haven't seen enough of, you know, African stories that are out there. I don't have like a big catalog of African, you know, all South African films that I can sit for 10 years and watch. So we still need to make millions more. So, and another thing is that if you also come from a very small country with a very small market, you need to follow a certain pattern, because there'll be a market that says we want comedy. So how do I, you know, follow, you know, the trend of just making comedy because everyone wants comedy when I have a genre and I want to do a thriller? So sometimes you just have to, like, you know, break the rules and just, you know, stick your, you know, to your guns and say, this is the story that needs to be told. And even if I have to fund it myself, maybe do that. But it's important to make sure that every voice is heard. And we use you know, the opportunities that we have as storytellers to make sure that everyone is represented and represented well.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing about trends can be frustrating, because I remember when Black Panther happened, and there was a lot of positive energy about, you know, Black films, and then suddenly everybody wanted a new Black Panther, and and it was, and I even remember with Moonlight, you know, it was the same thing, like, oh, do you have a Black LGBTQ story? And it's like, no, but if nobody had taken a chance on Barry Jenkins and Moonlight, you'd have never known that Moonlight could work. So I know it's a business as well, and people can be risk averse, but it can be very frustrating when somebody goes, well, the comedy has worked, so can you do a rom-com, and does it have Jennifer Aniston? You know, can you get Jennifer Aniston? And it's like, okay.
I think the biggest responsibility that we have also as filmmakers is to make sure that when you're given, especially for you know, emerging filmmakers, when you're given an opportunity to tell a story or a platform, tell it so well so that 10 other people that come after you are not questioned. So if I'm a Black, you know, producer and I want $10 million and the film's a flop, it will affect so many, you know, people that also needed that opportunity. So we need to be able to collaborate where it's necessary instead of, you know, competing. if, the six of us can sit in the room and say, okay, I have a story, but can we tell it with one voice? Let's do that, because every success will open doors. If Black Panther's doing well, then they're going to want the next Black Panther. But if it was a flop, then every other Black superhero story will take about 10 years to be considered. So it's quite a very tricky position to be in, but that's why you have to be brave.
It is, and I think it also at times puts a lot of pressure on minorities, whether gender or race or sexuality, because I feel like we have so much responsibility, because I feel like you can be a white guy in America, and you can make 3 flops in a row and it's okay. But we never just get the opportunity to be mediocre. We always have to be super excellent. And at times it can take a bit of time to find your voice or to reach an audience.
I mean, that's very true. But remember, out of 100, white guys, it's probably like 4 Black women. Yeah. So the spotlight is always on you. So you cannot afford to put, or even like 4 Black women and 10 white women. So it's not, so you can't afford to put, a foot wrong. But 50 of those guys, of white guys, can get away with, anything, because the 6 that will do well, we'll talk about those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to add to this, because I mean, I totally agree with everything that you're saying on this, but this pressure of not being able to fail is just, it's daunting. So I think we all also share a responsibility of questioning people's labels of failing. Do you know what I mean? So because we see this a lot, that this and this was a fail, but if we dissect it a bit, maybe it wasn't such a fail. It was just someone breaking the rules actually for the first time. And I think this TV series things that's happening worldwide has taught us a bit on this. Like, we are allowed to take turns and shift focus a bit more than we were like 10 years ago, story-wise. And I just think that we have a responsibility of second guessing what it is failing, and because we have to have an environment, we have to try to make an environment that's actually allows other voices than a white male voice to experiment.
And so how are you tackling constraints, Silja? I'm
not. No, I'm doing it by, for me, I think a key element now is just allowing myself to be a bit vulnerable towards them. And the more light I bring to my vulnerabilities, the less scared I am. And it's just so much easier being true to what it is you need to do when you allow yourself to communicate it without some kind of pressure of it sounding perfect or being perfect or complete, when you're actually just in the process of making. So I think it's a lot to do with stepping into those constraints and actually look them into the eyes, and not like trying to remove them, but bringing a bit of light to them and talk about them, share what's tough. You know what I mean? But we have to choose who we confide in a bit.
Yes, you do have to choose your tribe very, very carefully. And Isabella, what about you? How are you dealing with, you've found a lot of freedom now in doing what you want to do. And how did you sort of look at the constraint in the eye and think, I'm going to take you on and I am going to be able to do this freely?
Well, like Silja and Zaida, I have the luxury of living with a state-sponsored system. So I just wrote the script that I thought was good, and so they thought it was good too, and I got the money. So that sounds very easy, but of course there were 20 years of working as a waitress and stuff, because I didn't have any other education. But yeah, I think I was just headstrong and one track minded, and just did my thing, and it didn't really matter to me if people got it, and I think that's why it was good. I didn't have a panel of people telling me what to change And that's when it becomes original and interesting. Sometimes not. And then you scrap it and move on, you know. But yeah.
I think that's a privilege we have living in Europe and also in South Africa, that there is a state system that does support films to some extent, not as much as we would love them to, but that is a privilege that we have that probably in America, I know, Pamela, there are not as many grants or BFIs or Swedish Film Institutes that would write a check if you fill out a form. What about you, Zaida? I mean, you've worked consistently. That was one of the first things I said to you when I was looking at your CV. I remember thinking, you know, I know in the UK, I think it's about 85% of people who make feature films never get to make a second film. And so, you know, and the second film is even harder to get than the first feature. So I remember when I was looking at your CV and I sort of saw like a film every other year, I was so impressed. I was like, how is she doing this? Because women are not supposed to be making films this quickly. So clearly you are working despite whatever constraints there are. So how are you tackling this?
Well, yes, definitely. As I said earlier, there are so desperate times, but still, I've been extremely lucky. And it's been a film after a film, and my first feature film was quite of a heavy production, actually. And it was a co-production between Finland and Germany. 2008, we filmed it. And it was such a heavy production in so many ways, because it was my first one and I took it so extremely seriously and to the heart that it was a bit difficult to recover from that. So, but how I reacted was that I needed to move on quickly and do something with a smaller budget and find the freedom again, and the not playfulness, but something like that I would really enjoy it again and not be responsible. So it's wonderful to get a good budget for your films, but it comes with all these expectations and with this heaviness. And it was wonderful to just go, and we did this, my second feature called The Good Son, with 2 small digital cameras, and I was operating the other one, and we had a lovely ensemble cast, and it was a story about dysfunctional family, a very strange relationship between a mother and a son. And it was, as Isabella said, it was one of those things that it didn't matter how it went. It was very important to me and I loved it. And it was a wonderful surprise to see that that was actually the film that interested other people outside of Finland for the first time. And it felt so good that I found something that I need to remember and hold on to. But yeah, of course, I'm fighting off. But I loved how you spoke about this, Silja. It was wonderful. We have to have all the same chances to fail and still go on. And we need to, because we need to be able to take risks. And if we don't, it's the end. So I don't know. I've done now. TOVE was my 5th feature film, and I don't know. It's a film. You're never safe, but maybe that's a good thing. You shouldn't be safe, but you should definitely take all the risks in the world. And also, I would like to add that I also love thrillers and even a bit of horror. So this is very interesting that there is still this thing that what people tend to think that women-directed projects are like. So, but the situation in Finland is good, as you heard before. From those 15 feature films made last year, 8 were directed by women, and this year there is, I believe it's the first female-directed horror film coming out. So there is this area of this genre area that still is very male-dominated, but let's see what happens. The direction is good.
Good. Well, maybe there's a thriller project that can come out of this discussion. Maybe that's our co-production.
Yes.
Well, you can have some of mine, because I made one suspense film about sexual violence, and I'm getting like bombarded with crappy female-driven horror thrillers from Hollywood, and they're so shit. So have them.
Yeah, because that's I guess it's the trend. It's worked for you, so hey, that's what you do now.
Yeah, exactly. You get boxed in like that. Yeah.
Let's take some questions from the audience. We've got a project coming, a question about projects. So what are all of your dream projects? Pamela.
Wow, that's a good question. I was gonna say, just answer one more thing about the risk. My film, Be Natural, that I made was a huge risk. I didn't listen to anybody as far as structure, and it opened in Cannes. It went to the New York Film Festival, went to Deauville, went to BFI, did the whole thing. And I'm still sweating because I don't know if it's still good enough, and I'm worried about my new project because I'm constantly in fear that I'm not going to get a chance again. I am working on a detective series that has action, and I'm working on a thriller, and it's not shit. And another period piece. I'm doing 3 things at the same time.
So Isabella, what about you? And the person asking the question does say, especially for Isabella from this viewer, what is Isabella dreaming of?
Are they Swedish?
Possibly, I have no idea because
I meant it when I was talking about the 70s television thing. My dream project would be to make like a lyrical 10-part film about my from excerpts of my favorite author Willy Kyrklund's super obscure, super lyrical modernist texts that about 5 people would watch. But those don't get financed anymore. About 20 years ago, you could still do that shit. It's just that's out of the window. But aside from that, I'm very interested I'm interested in true stories that are underexplored. So right now I'm working on 2 Danish stories and 1 Swedish story that are all true, and I'm also super interested in historical stuff. Actually, I just said I don't like horrors, but Bathory is a very interesting story, and there's also some, the Middle Ages in general was a super interesting time and very underappreciated. Like the Renaissance and the Enlightenment came and gave them shit, but they weren't that bad actually. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff there.
Yeah, history is definitely a fun research project. What about you, Terry? What's your dream project?
I have a couple. I'm currently working on a slate. First one being a musical.
Nice.
I would love to do, one major, African musical. And I'm sure, I don't know if you guys were aware of the Jerusalem song, which traveled all over the globe, and it kind of like confirmed exactly that music can just unite people. So that's number 1 on the list. I've got a short animation and a buddy movie, sort of like a Thelma and Louise, with a friend of mine that we're working on right now. So I've got a slate of projects because I want to create also roles for myself and also stories that I think are important. So I'm trying to find a good balance of a bit of drama, a bit of, something for them, something for me. Let me call it that.
And Silja, what's your dream project?
I have currently 3 dream projects that I'm a bit thinking towards and not necessarily knowing what's next, what to focus on the most somehow. I really want to do a song and dance kind of film, which is has like an everyday life kind of a very realistic song and dance Icelandic Tuesday film style somehow. And then a family drama that allows me to have all the practical stuff, a lot of, compact, so I am able to work in depth and in peace with actors and keep on working on my actor muscles and continue that. Yeah, that's all for now, I think.
And Zaida.
Well, I'm still letting go of TOVE a little bit, and it's actually a wonderful situation. I don't know what I will be doing next. So I don't know what my dream, and I don't have a dream project, so to say, but I'm reading scripts and I'm reading books and I'm taking my time and I'm listening to music and I'm trying to, I don't know, relax. I think it might do good to me. But I'm reading and searching. It's a good state to be.
You could also win the Oscar for international film.
Oh, right. Yes, that's the plan also. Yes.
So from Isabella Presnell, her question is, I have a question about the use of female filmmaker or labeling a filmmaker in general. Why do you think there's this label? Is there a need for labeling filmmakers, and do you have a preference?
I think it's the exact same tendency as you were talking about people wanting a new Black Panther. It's laziness, it's producer laziness. Like, they don't know how to be creative, they don't know how to what will sell, so they take an old concept and try to do it again, which in my eyes is just stupid and annoying and uninteresting and a boring idea. So I don't take it seriously. It really annoys me, actually. Of course, you're right that's not how it works. You need to give the new project a chance that hasn't been made yet, that is edgy and provocative and interesting and raises questions. That's what you need to go for, but they never do that. And I don't know why, because ultimately those are the films that actually get famous and earn a lot of money, you know, not the bleak copy of Black Panther 3, right? So it's to me, that's just really just bad business. And I don't know. I'm asking you, why are they so bad at their own business? No?
Does anybody love the term female filmmaker? Does anybody love being called a female filmmaker?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you love being called a female filmmaker? The question from Isabella, she wants to know.
I didn't get that part. I thought you were talking about labeling in general, like being someone who makes thrillers or whatever.
Yeah, no, she did ask about, is there a need for labeling filmmakers? Well, I guess, you know, the industry that we are in does love labeling, whether it's friends or different groups. And I'm just wondering whether anybody else has an opinion on that question about the term female filmmaker and the need for labeling filmmakers. Do you love being labeled?
I mean, for me, I would say it's not that I love being labeled. I think if you just say a filmmaker, the assumption is, you know, you're talking about a man. And so if you say it's a filmmaker, a female filmmaker, woman, you know, filmmaker, then you kind of give the others permission, those that are like, you know, looking, you know, young kids that are looking up, you know, to coming into the industry, to say, actually, as a young girl, you can actually be in that position. Because for the longest time, if you say a filmmaker, you're talking about a guy. So until we get to a point where it's a norm, like doctors now, you know, I think that label doesn't bother me right now. And especially also even the Black female, it doesn't necessarily bother me. I mean, I think it will take a bit of time. I don't think it's important. And it should be something that, you know, a one way, but it's something that one can use to encourage and to actually, as a call to action, to say, I can't be the only one. It's like being the only Black woman in the room. There's something wrong. The only CEO, the only anything for me doesn't make me comfortable. But it's important to say, actually, there is room. So if I can use that opportunity to invite others, then I'll just do that.
I don't necessarily have a term with labeling until the labeling creates an expectation about what I'm supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
If you call me a female filmmaker, I'm okay with that because, you know, I'm a woman. You know, I don't think you need to label me because once you see me, you'll know I'm a woman. You'll know I'm Black. But I think for me, it becomes problematic when you sort of start, you know, because I'm doing a film at the moment. It's a documentary that's in France about hip hop. And most of the subjects are men because, of course, it's a genre that's dominated by men. And a lot of people were like, well, where are the women? And I remember thinking, well, they're not that women in French hip hop, period. And then it was like, well, have you looked at how it affects the women? And I was just like, well, this is a film about politics and the lyrics and the links to politics. But for some people, there was this big disconnect of, well, why would you be telling a story that's full of men, even though it's really about race and identity. So for me, I'm okay with the label until it creates this expectation. And suddenly you're not living up to the expectations of what a Black filmmaker should be, or what a female filmmaker should be, or Black female filmmaker should be. And then I think the labels can become slightly.
No, 100% agree with you. 100%. And also it doesn't mean just because I'm a woman filmmaker, you know, you should expect less. I think it can be something that is used to you know, to also try and hide behind. But also as a woman, like you said, I can't be ashamed to say I'm a woman.
Yeah. Zaida?
Yes, I would like to add, because it's kind of strange that when I was growing up, I loved films, and we had a good library of VHS cassettes, and I was seeing all the wonderful classics time after time, and there were no female filmmakers or directors. They just didn't exist, and it's so horrible to somehow understand it now, because at the time when you were a 12-year-old girl, it was something that was just given, that okay, films are made by men, and it's such a short time ago still, and I just wanted to enjoy this moment that it's gone. That won't be the case anymore for little girls, because it really is important that we get other views on the world after all those many decades.
Yeah, and I found that interesting because when I was a kid, I think I was just so innocent, because I remember I used to make films with my dad, and I loved the Bond movies, and he was also a Bond fanatic. So remaking Bond was something we used to do together, and Goldfinger was my favorite, still is my favorite. And I never realized that Bond was even problematic with even the way women were portrayed. And I used to remake those films, and I used to cast myself as Bond because I never saw anything wrong with that. And then, of course, now you think, okay, recently somebody was saying, like, there was a Black woman who was going to be Bond, Natasha Lynch, and, the internet erupted. But I remember as a kid, it never even occurred to me that this was something I was not supposed to aspire to do. And it's kind of really bizarre where when you're very innocent as a child and you just believe that the world, everything is possible. And then as we grow older, suddenly these labels really begin to fit into our subconscious and encourage us to sort of start thinking that maybe certain things are not for us. And I find that incredibly bizarre, how the world suddenly changes your views or even your level of confidence and belief of what you could do. Because I know that now I'll probably hesitate to say, I want to direct a Bond film, because I know that somebody in the room is going to think, well, what makes you think that you could do that? Well, as a kid, it just, that there was no limit in my mind as to what I could do. And maybe this ties in with Helen's questions about role models, because that whole thing of CDP, do you see yourselves as role models?
Well, I think one of the proudest moments I've had in my life was when I was in a film school jury, and there was this young woman applying in, and she had written on some paper that she enjoys, for example, Zaida Bergroth's movies. And I was so proud, that was my, the highlight of my life, that I hadn't maybe seen myself as somebody who could inspire other people. And I'm still very proud of that. So in that sense, for that moment, I was very happy to be a role model.
Pamela?
There's so many thoughts. What am I coming to? By the way, if you want to make a Bond movie, we should totally make it.
Let's do it. We'll create our character 009.
Yes. So what's the question again? I'm sorry.
You see yourself as a role model?
Well, yes and no. I still feel that I'm an imposter when I can't even say that I'm a filmmaker out loud. I know this sounds ridiculous, but people ask me what I do. And I say it, and then I said, well, no, not exactly. And then I just kind of skirt around it, which is completely ridiculous because I am a filmmaker. If you guys have not seen Be Natural, it's not self-promotion, but I think it addresses the issue that you were talking about, Zaida, and also you, Victoria. Growing up, I thought I could do all these things, but all these women were absent in so many areas that I was interested in. You know, I didn't think about who directed E.T. or Indiana Jones or all these things. You know, obviously I knew, but like, why couldn't I do it? And then when I made my film, I realized that there were no really women directors as examples to look up to, only a few that we can count. So I think I'm a role model in a way that I ignore the obstacles and I focus on the possibilities. Be Natural getting made. It's a subject about silent filmmaker, and so many rejections, and so many people are stunned that I was even able to get it made. So I think for that part, possibly, but that's about it. I'm just like everybody else trying to make it. And all I can do is just tell everybody who's out there that, hey, I did it. I didn't go to film school. I had no idea what I was doing. And I had all these people telling me all day long that I had no idea what I was doing. And I went ahead and did it. So if that's considered being a role model for that, I will take it.
I mean, I saw Be Natural and I really loved it, but I was also surprised that I had never heard of her before.
It's ridiculous and it's shameful, but it's changing. You know, you guys know, you'll watch it, maybe tell other people, they'll tell other people. And it's, you know, I'm not someone to toot my own horn, but this whole movement in Hollywood, my Kickstarter was in 2013 to get the film made. And it did create waves, and people started organizing women, organizations for female directors, etc. But I just put my head down and focused on finishing the film. I'm not very vocal in Hollywood on Twitter and social media. I'd rather create content and, you know, take time to go walk my dog and do stuff like that. I'm not into that stuff. So I know it's made a difference because she's published. You know, there's a picture of her next to Chloe Zhao not that long ago in Variety. If you look her up, there's always something about her. And when I started, it was really ugly pictures of her on Google. And now, you know, I contact all these places so they update their websites, and it's really pretty to see this mosaic of her, and that people get to know about her and rediscover her. She's being taught in schools, in books, etc. So I'll take the credit for that. That's about it. The rest is all her.
It's a beautiful doc. Everybody should watch it. Terry, what about you? Do you consider yourself as a role model?
It's a big responsibility, but also something that I cannot shy away from. Especially as an actor, I mean, I've always been clear that, you know, this is the path that I want, this is the industry that I want to be part of, and that will come with, you know, if it comes with certain success, there'll be certain expectations, and to be able to achieve what I've achieved in a, you know, my 19 years of being around, I'm joking, older than that, but in a very short period of time, I know it has inspired a lot of people, a lot of young, you know, young girls, young boys, and also coming from a very disadvantaged community. You know, you do become a role model, and it's something that I know that I never planned it that way, but I embrace it. And if I can, you know, inspire 1 to 10, 100, 1 million kids to be better, to know that, you know, their dreams are valid, then yeah, I would say yes. However, I would love to be a role model in a sense that, you know, to be remembered as someone who lived her truth, and yeah, with clear intentions and honesty, and achieve, you know, the things that she wanted to achieve. If that can be, you know, my legacy or what makes me role model, then I would be very happy. because certain things like success and fame is a byproduct, and that can, make you a role model in other people's life. But are you intentionally doing something to inspire people and be a role model and a mentor?
We've run out of time. I feel like I could talk to you ladies forever, but I'm just want to take another question from the audience, which is, if you could change something in the industry, what would it be? If we just go around everybody. Silja.
I think it would be, I'm trying to find what sums up, because there are so many things that I would need. For inclusivity, I want to say also more open atmosphere, or more less fear. Yeah, I think all of those things will achieve a more healthy dynamic that will all make us do even more wonderful films and allow other people to not be excluded that need to be up here with us.
And Zaida, what would you change?
I think I'll just go with Silja's words here. I thought that was good and nailed it. I would love to see women failing and happily getting up again and doing more films, and that would be a good, healthy change.
Isabella.
I think we need a global economical revolution, and that's gonna change. That's gonna change who makes the calls.
Pamela? You're on mute.
Even on the final question. Okay, I agree with what everybody said, and I think don't underestimate people because they haven't done it before, especially women, and don't assume certain things. Stop putting people in boxes in general. Be open and give more chances. If not, you can create them yourself. Like our Bond movie.
Yes. And Terry, what would you change? You're on mute as well.
Oh, I was saying in the world or in the film industry?
I believe it's in the film industry. The question was if there was anything you could change in the industry. Yes.
I will change the idea that people think, there's urban film, Black film, this film, that film, and just, try and say we have one way of telling film, and that's a human story. So if we can change putting labels that make us not, want to participate, I think if we can change that, we can go far. Because the minute I say, okay, this is meant for that one or her and not me, then already I'm like excluding myself and, removing myself from the equation. But if we say we are telling human stories, that's what, the role of cinema is, I think we can achieve a lot, regardless of what language we speak, because we human beings, we're just telling human stories and human experiences.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I remember there was a conference organized by Women in Film and TV International not so long ago, Carla, where there was something one of the speakers said that still stays with me, where she said there's no standard form of humanity. So when we talk about, Black filmmakers, women filmmakers, it's almost like there's the norm of who the filmmaker should be and everybody else is the exception. But there's nobody who is sort of like the norm of humanity. We all are. So thank you, ladies, so much for a very lovely conversation. It was really amazing. I think this could go on for another hour, but sadly we have to stick to the time. So thank you very much in your different time zones. And I'd also like to just thank the Finnish Embassy for hosting, and also to the audience. We would love for you guys to sign up for next week's film, which is Queen of Hearts, and next week's conversation, which is Inconvenient and Outrageous Women, with the Danish actress Trine Drillholm, Swedish actress Sophia Helen, Finnish actress Elina Knitela, and American actress Saudia Rashid. And of course, if you do have a ticket for TOVE, don't forget you can watch it, but please make sure you watch it by tomorrow, 8 p.m. EST. So I'll hand everybody back over to Regina, the producer, who is going to close us down.